morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on the 7th day of September 2021. My name is Sam Gituko, and it's time we want to discuss what has been informing conversations in the country. And I want to introduce Javas Bigambo, governance expert, but also a lawyer. Welcome to the show. We have Honorable Beatrice Zalachi, CAS, Public Service and Gender Affairs. Karibu sana to the show.
Asante, good morning.
Senator Sylvia Kasanga, nominated senator from the Wiper Party. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
And Dr. Chris Omalwa, the Member of Parliament for Community Constituency, but with a lot of aspirations ahead of next year's election. So I'm doing the introduction. Just let me finish. So karibu sana all of you to the show.
Thank you.
And I want us to engage on different matters. But starting with what is on the two dailies, on the front page of the Daily Nation, you'll see Uhuru's allies take on Ruto over riches, and they're saying that there are plans to freeze the DP's bank accounts and send him tax demand letters. This is after that statement by Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, Raphael Tuju. Onslaught against DP Ruto goes up a notch as President Kenyatta's Jubilee Party reveals plans to send state agencies to investigate the sources of his wealth, even as ruling party launches a plot to oust him as deputy party leader. You can see the story on page 4 of the Daily Nation. But also a very interesting story down there. You'll see postpone 2022 polls. Ex-senator asks court. We are talking about former nominated Senator Paul Njoroge, who has petitioned the High Court to postpone next year's general election, arguing that the electoral body, we're talking about IEBC, was not properly constituted when it set the date to conduct the polls on August 9th, 2022. We'll have to see the arguments that the lawyer will adduce before court, but also the responses from interested parties, including IEBC, for him to say that the polls the date was set for August 9th. I thought he's premeditated in the Constitution. On the front page of the Standard, Tuju puts Ruto on KRA's radar. Jubilee Party challenges the DP to publicly declare his taxes following his admission that he owns 70% of the properties listed by the Interior CS, as well as 200,000 chickens, giving him an income of 1.5 billion shillings every day through the sale of eggs. The story continues on page 6, but also speculation of Jubilee or UDA, Waiguru's options. A cautious Kirinyaga governor weighs options days after accusing the government of intimidation through arrests and summons by state agencies like ESCC. And we'll be shortly discussing that question, that press statement by the Jubilee Party Secretary General. But quickly, I just want to get a feel of what the rest of you think about this matter that has been taken to court by Senator Paul Njoroge about the dates of elections. Let me begin with you, Dr. Chris Omalwa. What do you think? Is there any place, if you're to look at what the Constitution says on avenues where you can extend the term of Parliament, vis-a-vis the realities of COVID-19 and the challenges that IEBC has faced, do you think there's any credible reason that would make the election to be postponed? Is there any need anyway?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam, and with due respect to my friend, the Senator, it is very, very misplaced. First and foremost, IEBC does not set the elections dates. The elections dates are stipulated in the Constitution, the second Tuesday of every 5th year. And for him to claim that IEBC had set a date, I think that was wrong. Secondly, when you read the Constitution, it stipulates clearly circumstances under which elections can be postponed. For instance, the issue of war. That is when you can postpone the elections. At the moment, Kenya is not at war. So we can't expect the courts to declare anything otherwise, because there's no war at all. Kenyans are prepared. They're ready to go for the elections in August next year. Secondly, when it comes to the IEBC body, IEBC is, as per Article 889 of the Constitution, it is the one that are supposed to conduct the general elections. And IEBC has been operational. When you talk of the issue of the CEO has been there. He's been acting. When you talk about the issue of maybe they were not fully constituted, as way it was said in the Court of Appeal, His Excellency the President had put a selection panel in place, and it's just last week that National Assembly had approved the 4 commissioners. Subsequently, His Excellency the President has appointed them. As we speak right now, we are told that in, I think in Mombasa, going through the induction process. So right now, the IEBC Commission is well constituted. And as Kenyans, we call upon the IEBC at the moment to go fully and prepare the elections thoroughly, so that by the year 2022, we should be able to have a free and fair, credible, general elections. Kenyans are not ready for any postponement. Some of us who've been elected, we were given a term of 5 years. So when the 5 years come to an end, we need to go and renew our mandate from the voters. We don't expect anyone to go through backdoor to extend the general elections for people to stay in office. Kenyans have a right, and by the end of the fifth year, they expect either to renew your new contract or to send you home packing. So I want to tell my brother, Senator, that this thing is it is dead on arrival. Okay. Because as the Constitution stipulates, those are flimsy reasons. You can't come and say that IEBC is not prepared, and they're not the ones who said the election's dead. It is the Constitution. Thank you. And
Senator Kasanga, of course, now the new commissioners are in office. It's about 11 months to the polls. What are your expectations at a time that the country is looking up to them? This is partly the same commission that had the presidential election of 2017 cancelled. What are your thoughts, especially when you look at rectifying the challenges that led to the situation of 2017?
Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you again for having me. I think we've had this conversation before, and we have said here rightfully that it is the process of the election that matters for them to deliver a credible election. So we need them to, rectify all the things that were said in the last election that were a bit off. In fact, if you remember the cancelled presidential election, some of the issues that had arose at that time and through the other petitions that were challenged, election petitions that were challenged, all those issues that just need to be addressed. Let's address how, the transmission of the results from the polling stations is happening. Let us address the issues of, say, electricity failure or lack of thereof for biometric kits to work in every corner of this country. Those are the sort of things we want to see being done. Of course, we are curious when we see tenders being cancelled at this point in time, when by now, a lot already should be in place by IEBC when it comes to their preparation for next year's election. It worries us a little bit when we see some of those procurement issues. But this is our country, and we are hoping they can rectify that as soon as possible and put in place, the mechanisms that are needed for this credible election. I mean, who wants to go for another, a cancelled election or anything like that? We are still recovering from the double election we had in 2017. Honestly, truly speaking, the economy never really picked up from that time. So IEBC owes to Kenyans a credible election, and it has to be extremely transparent. Extremely transparent. We don't want to hear things of vifaranga via, what was it? Computer vifarangas. Surely we should, IEBC should demonstrate growth from the last election. They should demonstrate that they have definitely taken the lessons from the issues that made the last election be cancelled, and all the other petitions that arose. Want to see much less of that. Of course, we know it can't be 100% perfect, but really the margins now should be tighter, and the margin of error should be much less than the last election, so that we can say we are moving forward. It's a new constitution, and these are constitutional bodies, and we want them to get stronger as we grow as a nation. So that is what I'm looking forward to from IEBC.
And Javas, obviously, if you're to reflect on the election of 2017, so much interest from the political class, but also from other members of the society. Several cases were taken to court or to different tribunals or boards. Some similar to what just happened to the KIMS technology or the election technology tender that was nullified on the 1st of September. So how does IEBC listen to the stakeholders to avoid some of this, what do you call them, hurdles put in their way as they prepare for an election that eventually needs to be credible, bearing in mind that the amount of money that the country will be putting into it?
Thank you, Sam. Let me start by saying that we are already on a very slippery path, because in 2017, the very expensive BVR kits failed during the voter identification. And having been procured by the Exchequer at a very high cost, it is a pity that we have not even gone back to examine the reasons as to why we as a people suffered such loss. Secondly, it is about conducting a credible, transparent, verifiable election. This is just about the rule of law. The cancellation of the election, the presidential election in 2017, an indictment on IEBC, was purely for violation of the law. And here, if at all we were to appreciate that the planning, the execution of the election is to be done as expected, pursuant to parameters, I think all these sideshows will not happen. What's important right now is for IEBC going through, for example, even the recommendations that it made in its own report after the 2017 general election, seeing how jointly with the stakeholders, political parties, civil society, and citizens, ensure that step by step we get to overcome some of the challenges that IEBC endured in 2017. Sadly, we've spent more than 4 years doing nothing about that good body, doing nothing about preparing for an election that can be trusted by everybody. I think time has come that we must have this tradition that every election must not necessarily be challenged, that if it's been conducted in such a manner that is proper to the satisfaction of every player and every observer, not about the position that is given by the foreign missions of observation, but our own, then only then can we agree that this body is properly prepared to conduct elections. Sadly, it is politicians who are even right now trying, and of course I'm not speaking, I'm not indicting all politicians. I'm speaking to, for example, remarks that have come from the quarters of ODM, etc. I'm speaking about the dissatisfaction on the part of Kenyans. Today, if you're to carry out a spot check, nearly 1 in every 5 Kenyans does not trust the credibility and the preparedness of IEBC to conduct the 2022 general election. And so here I think time has come.
What are the reasons? Because, I mean, out of 7, 4 commissioners are actually new.
Well, that, of course, 4 commissioners are new. Commissioners, remember, are the apex, are the crest of overseeing the election process. It is not just a question of examining the hearts of the commissioners. The place of the secretariat, its preparedness, logistical issues, etc. These are things that need to be properly examined. The other thing, for example, how we manage even the environment within the polling centers and stations is crucial. Just by the example of by-elections that we've seen, the threat or the risks of violence are things that need to be addressed. The issues to do with the intimidation of opponents and agents, these are things that concern every candidate that goes to the election. And if at all we are not prepared, we're not putting measures in place to ensure that we do not goonify our elections, and that even politicians and political parties do not use the sorry excuse of guarding the vote to plant goons within the polling stations, is something that really needs to be examined. And these are critical discussions that we must have now moving forward, not just for this election, but constantly.
And Honorable Elachi, because some of the issues that Javas is talking about squarely within the political mannerisms in this country. So even as IEBC gets down to business to do its best to give Kenyans a fair process, what responsibility do politicians carry, and are they willing to ensure that on their side they'll do what they need to do to ensure credibility, fairness of the game?
Thank you, Sam. I think one of the things we must agree, all of us, is that within the cycle of preparing an election, every stakeholder is really responsible in seeing that election to be fair, to be transparent, credible, and more importantly, in the end, peaceful, so that we end up going home in a peaceful manner. But you see, when we come, we should not run away also from the obligations we've been given. And this one, we will take it back squarely to Parliament, to the National Assembly. I wish you can look at the roadmap and without blaming IEBC, without blaming Kenyans, agree the responsibility started with National Assembly. Are you late? Yes. Let's agree. Did we ever even ask IEBC to come? We critique a document and ask them, you were nullified, your elections were nullified based on 1, 2, 3. We never did that, Sam. What we did, I know we received a report long before from Chebukati, but to say that it has been in Parliament and you have critiqued and realized as we move to this election of a transition of 2022, these are the issues that IEBC must deal with. We haven't. Then we left them. First of all, we have never questioned them. You have no CEO, I don't know for how long. They have not had a CEO. They have been having an acting CEO, yes. But then, who really runs the election? It is the Secretariat. It's not the commissioners. Now, if already the Secretariat, some of them have moved, they were employed other places, these were very critical dockets, directorates, that are very serious directorates. So you have left secretariats doing what? And then even when they were doing, which is something I didn't see Parliament as, even when they were doing, which is okay, if you want to be employed or to look for better pastures, you have a right. And so the staff of IEBC had a right to apply, even to become commissioners. But you see, there's something you need to be questioning after that. That after that competition with this commissioner who is coming in, and I am going back to my job, are you looking at that conflict? Because I'll be looking at you and saying, that was my job. See, they don't know how to do the job. That's my job. You know. So, by the way, and it's natural. It's natural. I'm not saying it's bad. It's natural. It comes out naturally. People feel, no, I would have gotten this job. So the preparation of the whole team of IEBC needs for us to agree. We cannot push them the way we want to start pushing them, but we must work with them to rectify the mistakes we have done. That we are now, and I agree with Senator, yeah, the procurement cancellations will be there. Why?
Right. Because
of the BBI ruling. There were questions, oh, you didn't have quorum. You did. Now you're doing the serious procurement, which anybody, and Kenyans, we are very interesting. You can see how the former senator has just gone to court. Kenyans, we are interesting. We can even decide to just use that, to go back to court and say, you see, the courts had said you had no quorum. Why did you do procurement? Why did you do this? And you just return the chairman 100 steps behind.
Even though, Honorable Elachi, they say that the work of procurement is squared within the secretariat. Yeah. For the commission, it's about policy direction. I want us to... No.
You see, I'm saying, and I want to...
No, I get you. I get you that because of the challenges at the Court of Appeal, someone will go to court to challenge.
Any Kenyan will use a very flimsy thing and turn around everything that has been done.
Okay.
Even when you're doing that procurement, yes.
All right.
Then the next question will be, for how long have you stayed without recruiting your CEO? Is it over 6 months? Yes, over 6 months. What does the law say? The law say after 6 months, you either, the one who is acting becomes now the CEO as per the law, because you can't act past 6 months. You can't. The law does not allow you
Sam,
to
allow
act
me,
past 6 months.
I want us to exit from this conversation.
If you don't mind, Sam,
yes,
even in Parliament, when you are debating and it's a matter that is unconstitutional, you can raise the matter. My two colleagues have made some wide allegations, which I should put right. Javas cannot come here on the national TV and talk over research. I don't know whether it was scientific, that when you ask Kenyans outside there that they have no confidence in IEBC. That is a very, very wrong statement. Where did he do the research? Is it scientific or propaganda? We should not come here and start propagating falsehoods here. IEBC is the one mandated by the Constitution to conduct the elections. We must respect the institutions. He should table and tell us where this scientific research is talking about that people have no confidence. Because these utterances, when we start doing like this, we are planting a wrong seed.
Dr. Malati,
and for the sake of Honorable Elachi, he can't come here and claim that she can't come here and claim that the National Assembly, the Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, there was a IEBC amendment law which was passed, and His Excellency the President is supposed to have put a selection panel in place. So the delay, particularly when it came to these other 4 commissioners, Parliament had no say. It was His Excellency the President to put a selection panel in place.
That law came
and right now
effect in October 2020.
Yes. No, the IEBC Act. I'm talking about the IEBC Act.
Yes,
that brought in the issue
that allowed the formation of a selection panel.
Absolutely.
Was enacted in October 2020.
Yes.
It is still late.
No, it was not late.
Resignations were in April 2018.
Before that, my brother, the law says it is the president to declare vacants. The president never declared vacants.
That's what I'm saying.
And that is one of the issues that Parliament had no say. When it comes to the issue of the IEBC CEO, I remember jailers
just hold on, Dr. Chris Omalo. I had no intention of going into that. Just hold on. I had no intention of going into that. But I remember the leadership of Parliament in 2018, they were saying that after the resignation of the 4 commissioners, accompanied the 3, that was in April 2018, if I'm not mistaken, it was 16th of April, they said that there was no law guiding the recruitment of a selection panel, and therefore if the president was to gazette the vacancy, there was supposed to be formation of a selection panel within 7 days, but there was no law guiding how a selection panel would be picked. Parliament did not expedite at that time to come up with a selection panel. Now let me explain to you. You know, I'm speaking as a legislator, and at that particular time, in the absence of the issue of the selection panel, we had the public service which has been doing all this. And first and foremost, the president must declare a vacant. So the time these people resigned, the president never declared any vacancies. And as you clearly put it, since 2020, when this law was passed by the National Assembly, the president is supposed to have put a selection panel. He delayed all through. He just put a selection panel the other side. So when it comes to the role of Parliament in terms of enacting laws, I think Parliament had done its role. So we can't blame Parliament for the delay of the incoming. You're suggesting that Public Service Commission can do that, but I'm just wondering if an IEBC Act says that this is how you pick up the selection panel, but then the amendments that you passed in 2016, 2017 indicated that it will be a selection panel for the first commission after the passage of these amendments. Even if the president was to gazette that vacancy, what did you want to happen?
But the fact is, the president never declared the seat vacant.
He did declare.
But even Parliament, in its own wisdom, when it brought in the issue of the selection panel, it was done more than a year ago. The president delayed. The selection panel was just put in place the other day.
What I'm trying to say is,
so Parliament cannot be blamed.
In April 2018.
Absolutely.
The law was eventually passed in October 2020. That's already more than 2 years.
The issue was not the law. The issue was the president to declare the vacants. Immediately those people resigned.
Okay.
Sam, you see, I think what my income...
So don't blame National Assembly.
No, wait,
allow her to proceed.
What my incoming governor is doing, we were not blaming the National Assembly. I was saying, do not bring the blame to Chairman Chebukati, knowing very well all stakeholders, we have not been responsible in the cycle of how we start our election. So in the end of the day, because in the end when things will be on fire, we shall be bashing this IEBC, but we will never remember that it is us who started also doing the cycle late. That in preparations of making sure we have credible elections, we have started, all of us have started late. Political parties are in their own world. The National Assembly, we are on their own. And in the end, who will we blame? We will blame the chairman with his team. We will not even remember we have always been doing this in the wrong way. So if we want a credible election, and I want Chris now to listen, if we want a credible election to this country, let's not blame, let us not protect, let us come out. You are a leader of a political party. You are a leader in that political party. You must be asking yourself, is Ford Kenya within the process of helping to see a credible election by ensuring you follow what the stakeholders must do and questioning also? But if we start protecting each arm of what we have, then we shall not be
It is not the issue of blame.
Dr. Chris Omalo, we may never finish. I want us to move on because, look, yes, there's a new commission, and Javas Bikama, I want you to come in on this. And the new commissioners were sworn in on the 2nd of September. They serve a term of 6 years. So it should expire on the 1st of September 2027. Knowing that elections will always be in August, that will be within an election cycle. So we have created another problem while solving another, because if the election of 2027 the election season becomes longer than just the first election, that is, if there's cancellation or if there's a runoff, who will conduct the election of 2027?
You see, the good legislator is playing the defense card, and I think that should not be the point. And he's a very brilliant man. Let's face it. We have this habit for so long a time, for so many years, of playing mischief with the management of elections in this country. If, for instance, and it's on record, it's a fact that we all know, that former commissioners resigned from IEBC ages ago, 4 years ago. Really, what is it? And we are in this country, somewhere in this country. What stops the issue of determining that there are vacancies, declaring them as such, and the process moving forward? Why need we wait until the 11th hour for these declarations? And that's the kind of mischief I'm talking about. Why should we always wait, for example, that until the 11th hour, that's when we want to come up with amendments to various pieces of legislation to do with elections, for example, or security, etc. And here, it's not a question of lamentations or laying the blame game here. It's a question of calling things and stating them as they are. Let's face it. I think, as a matter of fact, Kenyans and all of us here seated in this studio have always looked up to the institution that IEBC is, constitutionally mandated, to conduct an election. And our faith is with it. Now, when we give the requisite support to IEBC, it does its job and does its job well. But if we sit on the fringes, waiting, and then in the end, and I'm sure even perhaps his own party, will come in the end and, as Honorable Elijah said, start pointing fingers at IEBC when we don't give it that credible support that it's supposed to have. When the terms of commissioners end, even for example at the close of that cycle, let us have the support mechanisms to this institution, that our faith is not in the individual persons of commissioners for the credibility of an election. When the institution has got the proper support and internal mechanisms that can be trusted internally and even externally by all stakeholders, no one will have a problem, for example, even if those commissioners, their terms come to an end and others replace them, even a year to the next election. We know very well that as Kenyans, we are always curious, we are always suspicious, and of course, we know we're also very litigious on various issues. So I think here, we need to create a new culture of respecting institutions to conduct their own work. Today, would all of us here say that IEBC, there is no kind of influence or desire to influence or appetite to influence the outcome of the 2022 general election, or any other election for that matter, because our history points to the fact that there have been attempts to influence. And because of the history that we come from, the bad history from which actually we are shaking ourselves off and trusting the greater future in which we are walking into, we want to ensure that if we have got statutory and constitutional institutions that have been created, we need to ensure from financial support for them, from process support, etc., to ensure that they work as anticipated in law. And so, to Honorable Omalwa, it's not a question of playing defense, but we know very well that if Parliament was to do its work properly and appropriately, we would not be here.
There was a fair challenge. Whether you have any credible research on that Kenyans don't trust.
Now, the thing is this. Even if we were to ask just in this studio, Honorable Omalwa, as a matter of fact, this right now, and even, for example, in the run-up to the 2017 general election, did you have absolute confidence, trust, and faith?
So for you, it's an assumption, not based on scientific research.
It's not an assumption.
Do you have any
look,
research?
Now look, if we consolidate various pieces of research that have been conducted over time, and you aggregate, it is a matter of fact that not every Kenyan, and are you assuming that every Kenyan has got confidence in the IEBC's conduct of election, even as we speak right now? Should we work with that assumption?
Senator Kasanga, so all these challenges, including the problem that is just referred to there, that we are already creating a challenge or a problem for the election cycle that ends in 2027. What's the role of Parliament? Because when he blames the president for failing to gazette, other quarters may think that Parliament delayed in enacting an amendment to the Act. So how do you deal with all these problems? Because Kenyans would imagine that our leaders are thinking about the challenges and looking for solutions ahead.
You know, Sam, I like to say when we sit in panels like this, the way we are selected to sit here, we owe a lot of duty to how we speak and to how we speak to issues to Kenyans, because we have influence. And I personally like to celebrate where we come from and where we are right now. And we must never lose sight of that. In fact, just this year, I was privileged enough to go and monitor the election in Zambia. And it was a manual election, which was extremely transparent, in fact, shockingly transparent, but very slow. And it reminded us, those of us who are there, of where we came from. And the strides we had to take to make sure that we have an election that everybody can go and vote in time. So you have streams that have less than 400 or a maximum of 400 people, you know, things like that. We made sure that, you know, there are a lot more polling stations, a lot more agents and things like that, which makes our election a lot more expensive. And of course, add the technology that we've added to it so that we can ensure at least we have a more, you know, efficient and hopefully transparent election. And, you know, we have to celebrate those steps we have taken as much as we want to critique any other, you know, any other emerging issues. And I think we have a duty to celebrate that and to tell Kenyans, you know, we have moved from so far. Where we are at right now today, you cannot compare to those elections of that time. I am personally a young voter. I would say I'm a young voter because I think I voted only maybe 3 times, you know. But there are those who have voted more, they can say, but the first vote that I took, I cannot compare with the one that I took last election in 2017. It was much more efficient. Honestly, you could see that. So we have to remember to celebrate these things and not to put those negative connotations that then Kenyans can carry with them. Because they go to debate. People are listening to us. They will go and debate and say, oh, people are not happy with the IEBC, and it begins to have this negative impression, which is very wrong. So I think we have to be cautious when we speak towards these things. Okay. And for the role of Parliament, of course, already a lot has been said here because, like Honorable Elachi has said, you know, when the reports came from IEBC, then of course Parliament has the duty to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And I usually don't like to comment much because I'm not privy to everything that is happening in Parliament. I am concentrating in my committees. I know JLAC is doing something, other committee is doing something. So possibly there are things that are cogs that are turning. And unless you go and make sure you have sought the information to know exactly what has IEBC been doing together with Parliament, it would be a bit irresponsible for us to sit here and say nothing is being done, unless we have the proof of it.
And on that note, I want us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be speaking about, is it the war or the revelations between or within the Uhuruto political union? The statement by Secretary General Raphael Tuju about the Deputy President. After the break, stay tuned.